Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dan, and this is Forlorn Hobbies. Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will be having a reflection of the hobby activities that I have undertaken in the last year, as well as making some bold hobby pledges for 2025. But before I get into that, I would just like to take a moment to thank you all so much for your support so far with this new adventure with the channel for me. Your support means a lot to me and I really appreciate it. I am absolutely amazed to have reached 100 subs already, and I hope that that number can continue to grow and that you will continue to enjoy the content going forwards. So, let's take a look at the past year. Now, I have painted probably about 200-250 models this year, which, although I am happy that I have managed to get that many done, I have felt at times very unproductive, which was one of the reasons that I decided to take the plunge and start this channel. And since then, I feel like my hobby motivation has returned, and I have been able to undertake more projects to a better standard, so that I feel that I am in a rather good place in my hobby mentality at the moment. Now, I haven't really completed any projects this year. However, I have managed to add to existing projects, such as a couple of extra battalions for my Austrian army, finishing off a few projects for Middle-earth strategy battle game. However, with the now release of the new edition, I will obviously be having to go through all my collections and making sure that they fit the new makeup of the list writing and making some changes if necessary. Now, the new edition has meant that for the last 5 or 6 months of knowing about it, that my Middle-earth hobby progress has kind of stalled, especially since the Teams event in October, so a couple of months ago. So a lot of the plans that I'd had wanting to go forwards are now not viable, so I'm kind of glad that I was hesitant in my pursuit of them, as I think from the 5 plans that I'd kind of had set aside to do, only one of them was actually viable in the new list setup, with the legacy units and so on. So I'm glad that I kind of saved my efforts and put them elsewhere, as I think that would have had a rather negative impact on my hobby production, having put all that effort in to see it kind of obsolete, should we say. I'm rather happy with the series that we have started on the channel. The quick and easy painting series, although aimed at beginners and kind of people that just want to get models on the tabletop quickly, has allowed me to paint a variety of things, and it meant that I could also just pick up a couple of things that I've had lying around and paint them, as opposed to going, oh, I need to paint 50, 60 of them. So it's kind of a refreshing little palette cleanser in between. Now, some of them are obviously for projects, like the British Line and the Rifles are for Napoleonic Wargaming's test game of Lord of the Sharp, so I kind of needed to get them done, as well as the Confederates for my hopeful project for next year, which I will get into more in a bit. I've also enjoyed the more kind of structured series that I have started on the channel. The Inspiration on Your Doorstep series, where I take a inspiration from local places of significance, in this case Conisbrough Castle, which is just up the road from me, and it's really allowed me to kind of immerse myself in like a kind of specific era of that, and also paint a small force for a new game, which is the Baron's War, that I've had an interest in for quite a while, but never really actually got round to playing it. So I thought, what better than to explore a small project with local significance and create a retinue for the de Warenne family in the time of the Baron's War. I've also, well, I say enjoyed the start of the journey to Under Eagles to Glory 2, which is in March, and the start of my Russian army. However, at the moment I am kind of pulling my hair out trying to paint mini after mini for it, and I'm not going to lie, I am looking at my to-do pile and at a calendar trying to figure out how it is possibly going to get done. Now, there is obviously a lot riding on this success, as I have a wager with Mr. Crew over at Tremontium Hobbies as to whether we can first of all paint a force for this Napoleonic Wargaming event in March, and then who the victor is in that grudge match game 1. Now, I know that Mr. Crew detests painting Prussians, and I do as well. I am currently looking at some that I have on my pile of shame, and I just look at them and go, nope, not today, and try to put that from my mind. So I obviously do not want to fall at this first hurdle and give Ian the win by default. I would much rather it came down to the game. So we shall be frantically painting more Russians going into 2025. From a gaming perspective, I have obviously, aside from attending my usual weekly club, I have been fortunate enough to attend several events which I have immensely enjoyed, such as the Middle-earth Teams event, which I covered in my event series, as well as having our annual kind of COVID support weekend, where we finished the 100 Days What If campaign, which was always a great fun whenever we do it. And obviously we now need to come up with a new kind of project to pursue as a group, which I will again talk about in a bit. So I find it's always healthy to have regular games, just to give you a break from the stresses of day-to-day life, and gives you kind of good, refreshing, whilst also challenging experience that you can just enjoy and immerse yourself in. Now, obviously, I have a great opponent in Tim, and we play a variety of games. I don't think a month goes by without Tim suggesting a new game to me to play with, which obviously has very bad results for my wallet, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because it is always a great experience playing Tim and others at our club, and we have some exciting plans for some mini campaigns over the next 12 months as well, so that will also be good to look forward to. So, moving on to what are my plans for 2025? Well, there are obviously the elephant projects in the room, which are the Russians for the Under Eagles to Glory 2 weekend event in the beginning of March. So I will obviously be relentlessly working my way through those. And because I am a massive sucker for punishment, I have also managed to get a ticket for the inaugural Middle-earth GT event at Warhammer World for the new edition. Now, as I mentioned previously, most of my armies need some sort of kind of reconfiguration to make them viable. So, depending on how much time these Russians take, I would like to obviously do a new army for that, but I do need to do a good and an evil army. So, as it stands, if I am painting Russians all the way up to Under Eagles to Glory event at the beginning of March, I will then have 12 days to paint two 700-point armies for the Middle-earth event, which is very unrealistic. So, depending on how that goes, depends on the amount of, from a channel perspective, kind of detail I go into for that event. Now, obviously, I will still do an event review, but ideally, I would like to have at least a kind of project vlog to go along with that for at least one of the armies. So, hopefully, we can get ahead with that because I have some very good ideas which involve quite a lot of converting. So, I would like to have as much time as possible to do that. However, after that event, mid-March, my calendar is currently free, so I can kind of indulge in more personal projects. I think with the release of the War of the Roses supplement for Hail Caesar, that is a definite kind of possibility. I know me and Tim have been discussing already a kind of campaign thing, maybe inspired by the Crusades campaign done by Seventh Son on his channel, as well as kind of looking ahead to our next big kind of weekend with our COVID kind of support group, where we've been discussing a variety of kind of eras to move to, away from, to have a bit of a break from Napoleonics. I think El Cid is a strong contender, and it is certainly something that me and Tim have been discussing again for a while. So maybe there'll be a kind of mini-series on that where I prepare for it if we settle on El Cid, or whatever the kind of game that we decide on. I will obviously kind of do a vlog that tracks my progress to building up towards that event, as well as the weekend itself. So that is something else to look forward to. Now, my much alluded to secret project, that I mentioned in the Confederate video, is that I want to kind of make good strides with my American Civil War collection and kind of get through some of my backlog. So I was flicking through Glory Hallelujah to find a kind of suitable scenario. Now, I would obviously love to do something like Gettysburg, but just realistically, I wanted a smaller engagement where I can do both sides and play it kind of in an evening. So, looking through the supplement, I found the scenario for the Battle of Monocacy. Apologies if that is not how you pronounce it over the pond. So please leave a comment in the comments on how you would pronounce it, which I would find helpful. So that gives a good kind of Confederate force and a Union force that I also think looks quite balanced in terms of they both have the three elements of an army, being cavalry, infantry, and artillery. And I know that warfare had progressed slightly, so that the role of cavalry was very different in the American Civil War. But from a kind of collection perspective, it allows me to mix up what I want to do paint-wise, just to give me a bit of a break from painting lots of infantry. Now, I will be focusing on the Confederate Orbat first, and I'm currently, I think I'm working on my 6th or 7th battalion at the moment, so I've already started to make good progress with that since the start quick and easy painting Confederates video had come out. So I'm relatively happy. Now, the aim is to finish that maybe by some end of summer, so I can start on the Union, but if not, the Union half will be a plan for 2026. Now, I will also be releasing sporadic updates on that project as I progress through it. So, if American Civil War is your interest and your jam, then keep an eye out for that. I'm also looking forward to finishing off the Inspiration series on the De Warenne Warband for Baron's War. Now, obviously, that will be put to one side for the moment because of the demands of the Russians. But after the 2 events in March, I kind of hope to plan spending a good amount of time up until Easter finishing that series off, because I've really enjoyed painting it, and I have plans in the works for a sequel series where I look at painting a Welsh force for, like, kind of as an opposition for them, because on my travels I spend quite a lot of my kind of downtime going to Wales, especially northern Wales, where you have the rugged and harsh scenery with countless castles that have been derelict and destroyed in these conflicts. So there is a huge amount of inspiration there for me, and maybe towards the end of the year we will see something appear from that. Another thing that I would like to focus on the channel is to do a bit more terrain. I've got a lot of terrain to get done for the event in March as well, so I'm hoping to document my journey through that, whether it's working with 3D printed kits or MDF terrain, or even some scratch building from time to time. Now, this won't be a main focus of the channel, but I would like to document my wider hobby journey as well, because I think terrain is a fundamental part of the immersive experience of wargaming in general. So hopefully my first video will be out in a couple of weeks. I'm just, say, about 70% of the way through the first building, so we shall see how quickly I can finish that off and get that out. Now, the final thing that I want to pledge is to do a British airborne force for bolt action. Now, I had very little interest in doing this army about 3 weeks ago. However, being sent a free sprue of the British airborne kit in my latest Warlord Games order, it kind of sent me down a rabbit hole, and I was reading about Major Digby, who, what the mad Englishman that he was, carried a umbrella into battle at Arnhem, and yeah, so I was instantly sold on this idea. So I will probably look at setting myself a challenge, like a kind of, I don't know, army in a month challenge or something, where I crack out a force for bolt action. Now, the final thing that I want to introduce for 2025 from a channel perspective is the introduction of my historical figures series, which will be where I take a look at specific individuals from history that I find relatively interesting, that I can also find a miniature for, and then offer a review of the mini itself, and then a brief kind of biography as I'm painting away in the background of the character and my generalized thoughts of them, just as a kind of an excuse to paint miniatures that I would not necessarily want to do a whole army for, but I am interested in and motivated to paint. Now, I have been collecting away at a pile of historical figures that I have found that I find interesting already, and the size of that pile is quite alarming. But the first one will be on Boudica. So I'm currently working away in the background. When I have a little bit of time where I'm fed up of painting Russians, I might just go and do a couple of stages on Boudica in the background. So I'm not quite sure when the project will be finished, but once it starts, it will be a kind of semi-regular feature on the channel going forwards, a bit like Quick and Easy Painting, but I'm hoping that there'll be about half an hour or so, maybe a little bit longer, where you can just listen away in the background whilst you're doing your own hobby, and just maybe discover a character that will motivate you to do further research on, and just get a little bit more enjoyment from your own hobby. So, with that said, I think it's time to sign off and wish everyone a happy new year, and I hope you've all had a great Christmas or holiday season. So, with that, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy your hobby.